Okay, today is September 11th, 2018, and right now at 10:45 p.m. we have a temperature of 65 degrees here in the foothills of Los Angeles. The relative humidity is 75%. The dew point is 57 degrees, and the barometer is reading 29.85 inches. And we're looking at Hurricane Florence in the Atlantic. Interesting features today. We see some blast patterns right here on the western side and also the north eastern side. And the storm looks rather lopsided, and that's because there's some manipulation going on right here. We see some clockwise rotation right in this area, and also right down here we see a lot of evaporation right in this area. This very blue area fills out towards the end of the loop, and that is changing the course, the direction of this storm. And that's why this storm has a flat spot, sort of a little bit of a flat spot, and it's lopsided. We see a lot of water vapor out on this side, but not much over on this side, on the south side. And that's because of manipulation occurring. We see high pressure being installed. We have the clockwise rotation right here. We can see some partial clockwise rotation right there. And so this is changing the direction of Hurricane Florence. Look at this fill out towards the end of that loop right there. If we put the grid on, we can see that the storm is definitely changing to a more northwesterly trek. All right, so this is still a Category 4 storm. If we look at the National Hurricane Center map, we have basically the same stats as last night. The storm did weaken slightly between last night and right now. We still have Category 4 status, 140 mile per hour sustained winds with a central pressure of 946 millibar, and it's moving north, or rather west northwest at 17, according to what they said here. But it looks to me more like a northwesterly track. And of course, the cone track for this storm is to move right into either South Carolina or North Carolina by Thursday evening, right here, 8 p.m. Now, yesterday in the video, we showed how Hurricane Olivia was quickly blown apart. And we can take a look right here now on the Northeast Pacific. We see that Olivia right here is being completely destroyed. There's nothing remotely resembling a hurricane. We see a blast pattern there on the northeast side. So this thing has been pretty much snuffed out. Also, we have the remnants of Hurricane Norman right up here. All this moisture is flowing right back and into Northern California. And we have some manipulation on the jet stream right here. This is a jet stream flow into California. And right here we see a transmitter evaporating all that moisture. If you look at the infrared loop, we can see the pattern right on top of that jet stream. They're evaporating the moisture, and we can see that happening. And what little moisture is moving into California is being sprayed over, and we can confirm that by looking at the Doppler map, which is right here. Let's go ahead and zoom out and take a look at the west coast. There is no rain anywhere in California. There should be a lot of rain in Northern California because of that flow pattern, but there is none. Over here near Arkansas, we see a straight edge that's probably a couple hundred miles long at least, where a WSR 88D has evaporated the moisture on the north side of this big moisture field. So there it is. We have a lot of manipulation on the jet stream right here in the eastern Pacific. This should be bringing a lot of rain to the northwest. All right. Looking at the Atlantic, once again, we see Hurricane Florence. You see a lot of manipulation down here on the south side. That's going to re-steer this storm right where they want it. Now, we saw what happened to Olivia. Once again, we documented that in yesterday's video. Same thing should be happening to this storm. We see some blast patterns. We see a little bit more of an effort being made to target this system. They're using a little bit more power than we saw yesterday. But if they want to, this thing could be knocked down within 24 hours down to a Category 1 and just kill it off like they did with Olivia and all the other storms out there in the Pacific. All right, so that is the report. We just hope that this thing is going to be taken care of before it makes landfall. All right, I want to take a minute and take a look at this document that I saved on my computer. This came from physics911.net. I don't know if you can find this document on that website any longer. This is titled Active Thermitic Material Discovered in the Dust from the 9/11 World Trade Center Catastrophe. 4 separate residents collected dust samples and had them tested by Stephen Jones, who was a PhD in chemistry and physics. He's got 2 PhDs. And this is a very interesting paper. This is a smoking gun, folks. This research here proves that these towers, the 3 World Trade Center towers, were taken down with thermite and also C4 explosives, because the dust samples were tested and all 4 samples were found to have unreacted thermate in the dust. And so these people, these scientists, took these samples and had them tested. They looked at everything that could be looked at. And here's where these were collected, down in Lower Manhattan. Here's where the trade centers were knocked down. The planes that hit those towers, that was pure theater. That was a distraction to take people's eyes away from what really happened. The fact that there was molten metal that was over 2,000 degrees in the basement of this property for weeks is also proof that thermate was used. All right, so in this paper, we find that the chemical signatures, here's some unreacted thermate right here, these red chips. This is a nanoparticulate aluminum, iron, and oxygen, all blended together. This is a process that is not widely known. The process to do this is very complicated. And these people did their homework. These scientists looked at this with an electron microscope. And this is smoking gun evidence that proves that these towers were rigged to collapse in a symmetrical fashion. Basically, 2 quarter-mile high towers were destroyed with thermate charges that were strategically placed in the framework of the buildings. And so this paper here describes how these residents found they collected the dust and had it sent out and tested. Here we see the chemical fingerprints of all 4 samples. We've got iron, carbon, and also out here we've got the same chemical signatures on all 4 samples. Here we have aluminum and silicon, oxygen, and iron. All these elements were consistent in all 4 samples. But the fact that they found unreacted thermate in these samples is the smoking gun. And that's what they found. And they took these pieces and they actually used a blowtorch, a small torch, to reignite them. And lo and behold, they lit right up. So this is a paper that if you're good with a search engine, you can find it on the internet. It's a 25-page paper, and it's a must-read. Now, don't go to physics911.com because that site was rigged with a virus. You'll infect your computer if you go there. I haven't been to that site in ages, but physics911.net is the site that you're going to find all this information. And thermite burns at about 4,500 degrees. And I'm going to show some pictures here right now of what these columns look like. The demolition industry uses thermite to bring down the symmetrical collapse of large buildings. And here we see the diagonal cuts. The thermite charge is wrapped around the column like a blanket. And when those charges are ignited, these charges burn through steel like butter, like a hot knife through butter. All right, so we see some of the first photographs of the wreckage, and what do we see but these columns? These are about almost 100 millimeters thick, these box section columns that held up the quarter-mile high towers. Each one of these columns weighs about 20 tons. Now let's take a look at the next picture here, which is right here. We have firefighters. This is probably 2-3 days after the fact. And look at these columns. Are just every one of them is cut right through. Here we see some molten metal right around the rim. That takes some very, very hot temperatures to bring about this kind of these cuts. This is very thick steel. Here's another shot. You see these columns are cut diagonally. This is a picture of a woman looking out at the hanging on for dear life. Look at that. That's just really terrible. Here's a shot of the columns that were rigged with the thermite. This is the outer section of the skin of the building. The C4 charges were planted around the perimeter of the trusses here, and that's what brought these things down in a pancake fashion. Cores, the center core pillar, or rather beams were melted with this thermite, and it was done in a timed fashion, so that the towers were brought down straight down, pretty much. Here's another shot. We see that column up here, which is cut diagonally. You see the melted steel. Looks like candle wax dripping down off the edge of that I-beam. Double I-beams. Look at this. Amazing. So 9/11 was the ultimate double cross by our government on its own people. Here we see thermite and hot molten steel running out of the side of that building. That's not jet fuel. That is liquid metal from these thermite charges. This had to be done very carefully. It took a long time to plan this, and a long time to wire up that building, these towers. Here's this looks like a tower 2 coming down. All right, so this is the document that I wanted to show everybody. It's titled Active Thermitic Material Discovered in the Dust from the 9/11 World Trade Center. So this is something you got to find on the internet and save it, pass it around, print it, give it to your friends. This here is the smoking gun. Okay, that's it. We'll leave it right here and hope for the best for the people in North and South Carolina. All right, that's it.